it doesn't matter kind of who is in charge. I feel we're just sleepwalking anyway towards just a bit of a constitutional crisis.
Hi everyone, welcome back to DMC TV. I'm here today with my good friend Aaron, and we're going to be talking about his views on the Tory leadership race between Rishi Sunak and Liz Truss. Me and Aaron have been friends since secondary school, 11 years of age. Long time now, long time. We're knocking on a bit. We're in our mid-20s. And Aaron and I have very, very different political views, opinions, whatever you want to call it. So Aaron comes from a more socialist point of view. I don't. I've got his permission to describe him that way. He's going to introduce himself in a minute. I'm just curious, from someone who's sort of socialist, more Labour supporting background than someone like me, what they think of the current Tory leadership race and who will be our next Prime Minister. We're going to discuss who he thinks will be better out of the two candidates for the country, who will be better for Labour, who's going to be the weaker candidate and who's more likely to win. And I'm also curious for his thoughts later on Keir Starmer. We've had news in the last hour or so that he sacked a man called Sam Tarry, someone I'm not aware of. It's Angela Rayner's boyfriend. He's the Labour Transport Minister, Shadow Minister. So that'll be curious to get Aaron's thoughts on all these things. So without further ado, I'll let Aaron introduce himself.
Thank you for having me, Dan. It's great to be on the channel. I've been an avid fan since day one. I've watched all your videos, and I'm really excited to be on. And I think it'll be a good chance for us to actually have a conversation, because like you said, we've had many debates over the years. So it'd be good to have a good conversation about the current government, really, and what direction it will be going in over the next month or so.
Absolutely, absolutely. So get your first thoughts, Aaron, on who, from your perspective, would be better. Who do you want to be the next Prime Minister, and why, I guess, essentially, out of the two?
I think it's a tricky one, because I think they both are, and this is with my stereotypical Labour hat on, they're both quite weak candidates, in the sense that I feel Liz Truss, I feel she lacks the charisma. And I know we've just had a Prime Minister who was, he was lauded for having so much charisma, but I feel you watch, I was even doing my research for this, and I just seen her speeches over the years, and I just feel that she doesn't really have that oomph to her. Like, she's I don't feel like she can captivate a room. And then on the flip side with Mr. Sunak, I just feel he's almost just guilty by association. I feel like the Conservative Party have cut the head of the snake off, and well, quote unquote, and by going down, by having his Chancellor of the Exchequer as the new Prime Minister, it's almost as if it's business as usual, as if nothing's really changed. And I know that's applicable to both candidates, something that I'm willing to further discuss. But yeah, I feel there's arguments to be had for both candidates, and from a Labour perspective.
Why, when you say guilty by association, what do you mean?
With regards to Sunak, so he was obviously Chancellor under Boris Johnson. He's obviously been given the fixed penalty notice regarding Partygate, when they all openly said that no rules were broken. That was the party line. That was obviously proven to be a misrepresentation of the truth. And I just feel all the main policies, every policy that's gone on over the last 3 years, Rishi has been there every step of the way, because obviously, second highest position in the land. And that's why I feel he'd be guilty by association.
And out of the two, who do you think you've talked about Boris Johnson's charisma, who would you say is more charismatic? Because I don't think either of them are, but if I was to pick one, it would be Sunak.
So I agree with you on that. And if you look back to the start of the pandemic, Sunak was highly praised, for the furlough scheme and given supporting grants to businesses and whatnot. And at the time, he was seen as a great man and potential leader of the, not only just the Conservative Party, but of this country as well. But I just feel as time has gone on, there's been so many mishaps. You think of, you could argue furlough went on too long. That's cost, the taxpayers, how much, how many billions,
yeah.
like an obscene amount of money. You look at schemes like the Eat Out to Help Out scheme, which at the time you thought, yeah, this is great, and then it just led to a massive uptick in COVID cases. And then even on a smaller scale, I don't know if you recall, I think he was cutting fuel tax, and he was having a photo op at a petrol station, and the car he was in was a Kia Rio. It wasn't his car. He just borrowed it from someone who worked at the petrol station. He had a convoy of cars, just off site. I just feel, yeah, if you'd asked me this question 2.5 years ago, I could have been like, yeah, he could be a good prime minister, but you just think now, and not to mention, the whole non-dom status with his wife. And I just feel.
Do you think this is where the difference in opinion comes from? So as far as I'm aware, what she did wasn't illegal. It was tax avoidance rather than evasion.
Yeah.
So if that's the case, and those are the rules might be a joke, but if they're there to be exploited, what's the issue there?
For me personally, the issue is that Sunak was responsible ultimately for money in the country. You look at things like the hike in national insurance, the cutting of the £20, and I forget what the schemes. This escaped my mind. It's
just on welfare payments. Yeah, I don't know
welfare payments. Yeah, but then his partner is tax avoiding, which you're right. It's not illegal, but I just feel as Chancellor of the Exchequer, and obviously that's being his wife, I just feel it's really just not a good look to have.
Well, they clearly thought that as well, because when it came out, I think she's changed her status voluntarily. She didn't have to, as far as I'm aware.
So I don't know if she actually has changed her status, because when I was doing my research on this, so I could be, if I'm misquoted here, I apologize, but my understanding was she paid the tax debt, quote unquote tax debt, that she had, but she maintained her non-dom status. I think that's what happened. Again, if I'm wrong, you can eviscerate me in the comments, but
I can't remember the specifics. I thought that they basically gave in the end. But I think from what I've seen of Rishi Sunak on these debates with Liz Truss recently, the bloke does love himself. He keeps talking about what he's done as Chancellor. And if you say it once or twice, it's like, okay, cool. But when you're saying it every 5-10 minutes, it's like, all right, okay, come on, chill out now. Do you know what I mean?
I know.
I guess moving over to Liz Truss, from my perspective, she's been on the scene a while. For people like me and you who sort of have an interest in politics, she's been on the scene a while. I don't know if the average man on the street, average woman would know who she is. She, again, she's not an exciting candidate. I think even Theresa May probably had a bit more oomph compared to her. Curious for your thoughts on her.
I feel she's trying to go down this route of being a Margaret Thatcher type in terms of how she's portraying herself anyway. You look at sort of the photo ops of she had a photo a few years ago when she was out in Estonia. It's a very similar picture to what Margaret Thatcher had in the Falklands.
Sure.
Even at one of the debates recently, she had the white pinned tie, very similar to Margaret Thatcher. And she kind of rose to fame quite famously alongside Dominic Raab, Priti Patel, and I believe the other one was, I'm just double checking now, with Kwasi Kwarteng. They wrote this book, Britannia Unchained, back in 2012.
Okay.
And it's quite famous now because obviously the main people who wrote this book were of high prominence within the last government, or the latest government. But then, yeah, piggybacking then off what you said, I just don't find her captivating. Now, I don't know whether that's me being biased, thinking I just disagree with you. But then you look at speeches like the famous one in 2014 about importing cheese, how Britain imports 2/3 of its cheese. And, she drops the hammer, how it's a disgrace. And it was just a very awkward kind of round of applause. And I just feel, I don't know whether she has the aura to carry to be a prime minister, but I could be wrong. You know.
Do you think she's a safe choice? Because, like you say, Sunak has a bit of baggage. I've done a video on that, and I mean, Boris had so much baggage. There's too much to go into. But what saved Boris was his charisma. He was. I don't. I imagine you hate. I imagine you hated Boris Johnson. Don't want to put words into your mouth, but
yeah, hate's a strong word. But I would say strong dislike. Yeah.
Yeah. I grew to sort of despise Boris Johnson in the end, but when he won in 2019, I was like, okay, maybe more hopeful than expectant. But I thought it might be a prime minister. He's going to change things. I mean, we were too young for Tony Blair. Maybe in the 21st century, this was what some people in the country at least thought, this guy's going to do some stuff. With either of these, literally, if you're unhappy about anything in society, nothing is going to change. And I feel from that aspect, Liz Truss might just be the safe, boring option, a bit like a David Cameron. So I don't know what you think about that. Is she a safe choice? Is she? I don't know. I don't think she's got too many scandals, as far as I'm aware.
I know she's got one scandal in particular regarding something that happened in her private life with, you know, we won't get into that. It's not for us to discuss. But I spoke with someone recently who I work with, and he's actually a Conservative Party member. So I was like, okay, this would be a really good opportunity to kind of gauge the mood of the members, what sort of direction it will go in. And they alluded to me that Conservative Party members would be more so to the right of the party, you know, not have we pay less in taxes, and you know that sort of mantra. And obviously Liz Truss would be someone who is going down that path. She's already said that she wants to cut taxes as what they currently are, because obviously, you know, under Rishi we're at what, 70-year high. And you can even see that with how Rishi has trying to react, being down in the latest opinion polls, since it's just been the two of them. And he's got his new winter plan. I don't know if you saw that he really announced. I think it was this morning. It was either late last night or this morning, and he's going to basically be cutting back on taxes. And it wasn't that long ago when it was suggested by, funnily enough, Labour. Really. He was like, you know, that's a ridiculous idea. That's not something that the country should be going with. But now that he can see someone who is ahead in the opinion polls, he's changed his stance like that so quickly to hopefully, well, in his sake, hopefully become the next prime minister.
I guess, sorry to cut you off. I guess it's weird as well because the corporation tax is still set to rise to 25% next year, April next year. And I think all the other candidates were like, this is like, you're going from 19% to 25%. This is nuts. You know, getting investment and all the rest of it. And so it's interesting for you to say that. I wasn't aware of that he's doing this winter allowance thing. So I don't know. Like I said, I think from my point of view, I just don't see either of them as inspiring, or it's just the status quo, isn't it? Nothing. Another thing with Sunak is I found out today that he doesn't really vote on a lot of social issues. So there's been loads of abortion votes and he's always abstained. So I don't know, like, you want a prime minister with a bit of guts. I think, right or wrong, that's a contentious issue, abortion, but I'm sure everyone has a view on it, whether they would vote one way or the other. So to abstain from that sort of stuff, I don't know, it's a bit cowardly, I feel.
Yeah, I do agree. Yeah, if you're running the country or being, you know, the head of state or the prime minister, you'd like to think that they're going to give their opinion, whether it's A or B, you know, and it's, you either like it or you don't. And, you know, that's the beauty of the democracy. You know, you and I, we disagree on, you know, everything under the sun when it comes to politics, but like that's the beauty of democracy. We can have that conversation. We don't have to agree. But yeah, I agree. It would be better if politicians didn't abstain from votes in regards to that, especially if you're hoping to become prime minister. I do agree with you on that one.
Yeah, I think it's a tactic, isn't it? He probably does have feelings on it, but he knows he'll isolate a certain
Mm.
percentage of it. Either way, he'll isolate. I mean, you can imagine probably Tory members compared to the country more are probably against abortion. So, you know what I'm saying? Either way, he's going to isolate Tory members or he'll isolate a member of the proportion of the population.
Yeah.
So I guess I think you say we disagree a lot, and we do, but I think on this chat we've agreed a lot. We don't think much of the pair of them. So sort of in answering the first question and moving on to the next one, do them at the same time. Who do you think would be better for the country? As in, who would you think would be the better prime minister, and who do you think therefore will be the weaker prime minister and better for Labour?
I feel
Go on, yeah, go on.
Liz Truss kind of, like we've said, she doesn't really have that oomph, and neither does Rishi Sunak. I feel like I'm hammering Liz Truss on that front. For the record, I don't think that Rishi Sunak has that oomph about him, that charm, you know, that way of delivering, you know, the policies that are needed for the country, or articulating them in a way that you can get the electorate on side. But I just feel it doesn't matter kind of who is in charge. I feel we're just sleepwalking anyway towards just a bit of a constitutional crisis. We're heading towards, in my opinion, a summer of discontent. You know, obviously all the strikes that have been going on, more strikes announced today for August 2020, and I just feel unless this current government can come up with policies and different ways in which to address these issues, we're just, like I said, we're sleepwalking towards a bit of a constitutional crisis, because it's just going to be one thing after another. You know, we've got the slowest growing economy out of the G7 countries. We have workers who are striking. The government are very much against the strikes, and you know that's a conversation for another day. But I just feel with both candidates, I think they're both so I think they're both quite weak, that there's no, I don't think there's a winner, basically. I think that's the best way to describe it. I think we as the country, we don't win with either candidate.
If you had to say that, you don't have to, but I mean, from my point of view, I'd probably prefer Liz Truss, purely on the basis I think Rishi Sunak has a bit of baggage. I think I have so many issues with the Tories' handling of Partygate, which he was part of. I mean, how Boris Johnson didn't resign after that still bewilders me. Obviously, I can't remember the Tory MP who's been arrested for alleged sexual offences recently. I can't actually remember his name. I did a video on it.
Was it Chris Pincher?
Pincher. That's it. Yeah. Obviously, that put him over the edge, because that was shocking as well. Okay. I would say Liz Truss, but very, very marginal. I guess then, curious then for your thoughts on how Keir Starmer would deal with either of them at PMQs on a national basis to appeal to people. Who do you think Keir Starmer would have a better time against?
I'm not that fond of Keir Starmer. I just feel like there's been so many controversies surrounding the Conservative Party over the past 2+ years. It should be easy breezy for Labour to win the next election. Like it really should. You know, we can all put political affiliation aside. It should be a cakewalk for Labour at the next election.
I agree. Yeah.
And the fact that it probably won't be, I think Keir Starmer has to bear the brunt of the responsibility in regards to that. And then, as you alluded to earlier, with the shadow transport minister losing his job because he joined the picket line, I just feel Labour as a party were built off the back of the trade unions, but they're a massive part of the history of the Labour Party. And I just feel Keir Starmer he's turning his back on them. It makes me really uncomfortable, him doing that. I really dislike it. And I just feel he doesn't have the charisma, the charm to take the party forward, unfortunately.
So how do you feel about the fact that Keir Starmer has obviously got the awkward issue of appealing to his base enough, and also to the country. And what I mean by that is he can't be seen to be too strongly in favour of the unions, because it will isolate a huge proportion of the electorate. I think that was part of Corbyn's issue in the end, personally. So what do you think of the fact, I haven't, because this article only came out about 20-30 minutes before we started tonight, so I've not read the article. I've just seen the headline that he's been sacked, this Sam Tarry. What do you think about getting the balance right? Do you think he's just got it completely wrong by sacking him?
Yeah, I think he has. I understand there's a party line you have to follow, but you have to let people ultimately not do what they want in life, but you have to give people the freedom to have the choice of what, if they want to join the picket line or not, especially as a Labour Party. Like, that's, it's not your bread and butter, but it's a pretty key part of what makes the Labour Party the Labour Party. And I just feel completely turning his back on the unionists when he promised, when he got elected, that, you know, he wouldn't do such a thing, which I only discovered on my way home from work this evening. I just feel, yeah, you're trying to tap into a base, but you've got to be either all in or all out. And I just feel he kind of dances around the issue. And like I said, it should be a cakewalk for Labour at the next election, and they should be polling like crazy at the minute. And yeah, they are polling better than the Conservatives, but it's not a crazy, man. I think it's only a couple of points in it.
Points, yeah.
When you think of everything that's gone on, it's, yeah, I just, it baffles me.
Do you think
that they're not?
Sorry, go on.
No. Yeah, I'll let you go.
Do you think? Because I'm thinking here, there's not many Labour front bench people I actually know, which is weird when I actually think about it, because I'm into politics. I don't know what you think of Angela Rayner. I think she doesn't come across very well to me. How do you put it? I'm trying to think of a nice-ish word to say it. Just a bit all over the place, I guess. I've seen her with some interviews, like with Andrew Neil, and she seems to collapse. I'm trying to think of other sort of Labour front bench people, but I'm struggling. We've not seen Diane Abbott since the last election. I mean, people like Chika and Amuna, all these sort of big names who he defected to the Lib Dems, sort of disappeared off the face of the earth the last few years. I don't even know what he's up to now.
Yeah.
Do you think Labour has a better alternative to Keir Starmer? And if so, who's that?
You see, she has a lot of flaws, Angela Rayner, but a part of me does really like her. I think she gives as good as she gets. And, you know, sometimes that isn't good enough in life, you know, for everyone. But I just like someone who, when she speaks, especially in the House of Commons, when she sat in for Keir Starmer during like the occasional PMQs, I think she gives as good as she gets. And, you know, she's passionate, she's energetic. And okay, she might be not the greatest politician in the world, but you can see, yeah, there's a bit of energy about her that I quite like. Maybe that's because Keir Starmer, to me personally, doesn't give off that same energy. So maybe it's because that's more of what I like in a politician, someone who is you can see that they care, or at least, you know, if they're only pretending that they care, at least they're good at pretending that they care.
Sure.
So yeah, I would just like to see Keir Starmer come out and just start going after the Conservative Party, and then giving out clear policies on how he would change, you know, the way we are at the minute, because 50% of the battle is going after the Conservatives, but then it's the most important bit is actual policy. And so I want to see him, what policies he can bring forwards into the next election, and hopefully.
Do you think he comes across as quite awkward?
But he's obviously a very intelligent man, like crazy intelligent. And I almost feel this is going to make me look like a bit of a hypocrite and contradicting myself. I think he'd almost be a better PM than leader of the opposition, because as leader of the opposition, he's got to overturn an 80-seat majority, and you need to go for the jugular, and you need to be amazing, because 80 seats is, you know, it's an insane number. Whereas if he was in a position of being the prime minister, because he's more mellow, he'd almost maybe be better suited to the role. And maybe that's a fault with me. Maybe because I view it that he needs to be more out there, high levels of engagement, appealing to the masses, but with policies, not just rhetoric. And because he's quite steady Eddie, maybe that's the issue I have with him.
I think when I've seen him occasionally on TV, and I don't know if he's a bit like I am now. He sort of like stutters when he's thinking about questions. Some people have the gift of the gab. I don't think he's one of them, and that shouldn't be held against him too much. But I think sometimes he just comes across as a bit uneasy in his skin. Because I remember when Corbyn was Labour leader, and he was always at the front, Keir Starmer, but I never saw him as a future prime minister. Like never. I mean, if he was up against Boris Johnson, despite everything Boris had done, no chance he would have beaten Boris, in my opinion. No chance.
I don't know. I think with like if Boris, let's say after the whole Pincher scandal had carried on, I just feel the Conservative part, like voters would have turned away, and not necessarily gone to Labour, but they would have turned away from the Conservative Party, because I just feel like with Boris, it was one thing after another, and to put it mildly, he was extremely questionable in terms of his past before he even became prime minister. And then when you factor everything else in, it just blew my mind, kind of how people still, even to this day, they still support him. You look at this kind of ties back to Liz Truss. She'd be kind of seen as the Boris candidate. She's supported by Rees-Mogg. She's supported by Nadine Dorries. I don't know if you saw what Nadine Dorries said the other day. She had a go at Rishi Sunak, how he was wearing a £3,000 suit, and how Liz Truss, and correct me if I'm wrong, how she was wearing like £6.50 earrings. I think was the example used.
From Claire, yeah. Claire's
yeah.
accessories. Yeah.
So yeah, I just find Nadine Dorries, that's a conversation for another day. She's an interesting character.
So obviously we disagree on the Boris Johnson thing. I think people have short memories, and despite all this nonsense, 2 years down the line, I just think because people obviously care about their daily lives. So as bad as it is, I think people would forget the Chris Pincher stuff. I just think people would.
But that Chris Pincher stuff was awful. Like,
it's shocking. Yeah.
There was the quote that came out where he had, and for sake of legal reasons, we'll say he allegedly said, Boris, Pincher by name, Pincher by nature. And when he was questioned about this, he didn't say yes, he didn't say no, but he very much politicized the answer, skirted around it. And I just thought, he's only admitted that because he's been caught out, and he'd been caught out twice about it, because he said he didn't know anything about Pincher. And then it was like, oh, okay, he just didn't recall. It's just the lying and the deceit that went on in Westminster over the past 2 years. It just blows my mind how people could still support him, or not support him, because obviously he's not the prime minister anymore, only in name. But yeah, it just blows my mind how loyal people can be to him. And I guess that goes back to the debate of identity politics. Because Boris is former prime minister, he's a conservative, I have to support him, or if I backed Keir Starmer to the hill and back, even though he let someone go today for joining the picket line, I think it's a bit disingenuous, identity politics. And yeah,
it's true. I think it's been a good discussion. Before you go, I've got a couple of quick predictions from you, and then I'll say what I think.
Mm-hmm.
Who's gonna be the next prime minister, and do you think that person will beat Labour in presumably 2024?
I think Liz Truss will be the next prime minister, and I wouldn't be surprised if she calls a snap election for next year, because 80 seats is a big majority, and 2 years down the line, so much can happen. I think they'd rather. in their mind, still win, lose a massive majority. Let's say they get in with a majority of anywhere between 10 and 20. So obviously it's a lot smaller, but at least then they're in charge for the next 5 years. So it'd be interesting to see if that's the avenue they go down, because I feel the longer this goes on, the lack of economic growth, issues with workers and whatnot at the minute, the cost of living crisis that's going on. I just feel the longer that the Conservatives leave it, I think it will affect them more long term, in my opinion.
Okay. I agree, Liz Truss, I think will win. And I think she will beat Keir Starmer or whoever is Labour leader, because the topic for another day, I think Labour, despite how bad the Tories are, I think Labour is such a mess. And I don't think Labour can galvanise people. I don't think Starmer can the way Corbyn did. The way Corbyn got tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of activists out on the street. I can't see people like yourself. I don't know if you did back then in 2019, 2017, those elections. I can't see people jumping up and down for Keir Starmer. I just can't see it, especially the left of the party. I think Labour, no, I just can't see it. Might be be interesting in a couple of years to watch this back, see what actually happened.
Yeah, we can do a before and after. See how good our predictions were.
Yeah, no, it'll be interesting. Thanks for listening, everyone. I hope you enjoyed that chat. Please let us know what you think in the comments. And I'd like to thank Aaron for joining us today. And thanks for watching, everyone. See you soon. Cheers. Bye.
If you lasted till the end, thanks for listening. Please like and subscribe. Bye.